Hi, I'm Nicole Kemper. I'm a writer, actor, and filmmaker living in Atlanta, Georgia. This is 50 Foot Woman, and I have committed to shooting at least one roll of motion picture film per month. Last year, as I was going through my YouTube binge about Super 8 film, I came across some videos on the Film Photography Project YouTube channel, and they were all about double 8 cameras. This is a format I had never heard of before, and so I went through, watched a bunch of their videos. They cover a lot of different cameras, and I became very intrigued about double 8 film. Double 8 film is also known as standard 8, regular 8, double 8. They all mean the same thing. There's another format called that is referred to as straight 8. Which is different, and I don't really have any information about that, but I can tell you that if you hear double 8, regular 8, or standard 8, they're all basically talking about the same thing. Double 8 film was created in the 1930s as an alternative to 16 millimeter film. It was meant to be sort of a cheaper, more home movie kind of format. So double 8 film is the same size as 16 millimeter film. So although 16 millimeter and double 8 are basically the same size, the big difference is that these come in 25-foot daylight spools. And so you shoot, so the film is 16 millimeter size, but the film gate is 8 millimeter sized. So when you shoot it, one side or half of the film is exposed, and then when you get through the one side, you flip it over, and then you shoot down the other side, which gives you in total 50 feet. So then you send your daylight spool, your exposed daylight spool, off to the lab, and they slice it down the middle and join the ends together. So after some research, I decided on this particular camera, which is the Bell & Howell Filmo Sportster. These cameras were manufactured between 1939 and 1950. I don't really have any way to tell you exactly how old this camera is, but it's thereabouts. So just to give you a little tour of what what we've got going on in this camera. So it is it's a wind-up motor, so there's no batteries. It's a spring-wound motor. You just wind it up, and it runs. The film speeds are 16, 32, 48, and 64. At the time, the standard frame rate for a camera like this would have been 16 frames per second. And so those other frame rates are for, doing slow motion. Up here, we've got the footage counter. And so it starts at 0 and then ends at 25. When you load your film, you do have to, and it kind of winds in a counterclockwise direction. You do have to set it back to S, or start, after you load a new spool of film. So the lens is a demount lens. You can actually take these off. So this is actually a Bell & Howell lens. It's this one is 12.5 millimeters, f2.5. It's fixed focus, so there's no focusing, but you do have to set the aperture. And based on having shot a couple of rolls with this, I'd say probably want your subject to be like at least with this lens, like 3 to 4 feet away. Certainly, I think other lenses, you'd get different results, but you can take this off and get other demount lenses and kind of switch them out. It took me a minute to figure out exactly how to set the aperture, but basically there's little numbers along the side, and then the same aperture number also along the ring here that you turn, and you just line it up exactly, line the two numbers up exactly. So it goes all the way down to f2.5 and it opens all the way up to 16, f16. On the other side, there is like at the time what would have been like sort of an exposure sort of cheat sheet, I guess, if you will, where you can put in your film speed and you can kind of look at the time of day and what the weather is and all that stuff. Of course, these are not accurate anymore because at the time, or I guess it depends on the film speed, but they're not totally accurate. The film that would have been used in this time period, you know, in the 1920s to 1950s was very, very low speed film. So if you're putting a high speed film in there, really anything above probably, you know, 60 or 100, this is probably not going to be accurate. There is a little overlay here in your viewfinder, which is designed to help you line up your shot. These are not reflex cameras, so there is a little viewfinder at the top. There's a little area in the back for you to look through, and you're seeing through this little window here. You're not actually seeing through the lens. So you're getting kind of an approximation of what the framing is going to look like, but there's a couple of options here. So there's like a very like sort of telephoto one, and then one that's like sort of midway between the wide angle and the telephoto. And then this would be your wide angle. It's pretty lightweight, which was one of the things that I really liked about it. I wanted something that I could take on the go. I wanted, in addition to kind of just being interested in the format itself, I really wanted something that I could just like pop into my purse and take with me anywhere. And I also kind of wanted something that was a little less noticeable. One of the things that I really like about shooting on film is that when you're out and about with your camera, people get curious and they ask you questions and they're like, is that a real film camera? Like, how does it work? And so that's really fun. But sometimes you want to go a little incognito, like you just kind of want to shoot and not really be bothered. And I, thus far, nobody really seems to pay me any mind when I'm shooting with this because it is kind of tiny, but it's very solid. It's metal, all metal. It's very well built. And you can see that this is, so this is where the film goes on the inside, and I'll do a little bit of a closer look so that I can show you how to load it. But essentially, this is going to be your film that you put, and then your take-up spool is down here. And even this one, you know, this one came with the camera, and you can see that it says film when on this spool is only half exposed, and it's got some arrows for you. Also, the spools can really only go one way. This one will only fit on this side up here and only fit on this side up here. So the spools themselves have been designed to only go in the camera a certain way. So you start with your film up here. You just kind of get a little bit of it off the roll. Put it in front of the gate, which, by the way, the pressure plate comes apart so that you can guide the film through the gate when you unlatch this. And then you put it on your take-up spool, and then that's pretty much it. And you just kind of follow the arrows on the spools, and they kind of let you know what direction the film is supposed to go in. And you want to, I would say you want to put a little, wind it a little bit before you do, so that you can actually make sure that it's loaded properly before you close the door. In order to get it to run, though, you do have to put your finger here on the gate to close it, and then it will run. They're pretty easy to load. I would say that one of the nice things for me personally is that you know, while I had worked a bit with 16 millimeter in grad school, I was never really comfortable with loading the camera. In fact, I got really, really freaked out by it, worried that I was just going to ruin my film. And I never really learned to load a Bolex. At that time, I actually always kind of leaned on my classmates to load it for me because I was very concerned that I was going to do it wrong. Of course, now since then, I've been to some various different camera meetups where, you know, you get an opportunity to try out loading a 16 millimeter camera. And so now I'm actually pretty comfortable with it. But I think part of the reason is because of this little guy. Once I was able to load this a couple of times, I was like, this isn't so bad. And this is much simpler, say, than loading, well, a Bolex kind of, you feed it in and it kind of sort of auto loads it for you. But this one is actually really, really simple. And I think if you're wanting something that's a little bit more, more manual in terms of its features than Super 8. So Super 8, you just slap the cartridge in. Most of them, the aperture, some of them you can change its manual, but for the most part, the aperture is kind of like the camera does it for you. And really, at most, the thing you have to worry about is the focusing. With these guys, you're setting the aperture, so you do have to have some kind of light meter or a light meter app. I have an app on my phone that I often use for this because it's really easy to pull that right out of the pocket and just get a light reading real quick. So you do need a light meter. You got to set the aperture, and of course you have to load the daylight spools. And I think it's a good, step up, a little step up from how automatic all the features on the Super 8 cameras are. If you're interested in, changing things up a bit. Overall, I've been really happy with the footage that I've gotten back from this camera. It's definitely a little bit like, in terms of the clarity, you're gonna get a lot more clarity with Super 8. Super 8 is slightly larger than 8mm. So it's kind of like as the gauges get bigger, you get more detail, you get more clarity. And so that's just something to think about. But as a fun camera to just kind of take around, and, when you're out with your family, at the zoo or something, taking the camera out and shooting with it is really simple. And so while I've shot multiple rolls at this point, because it's just so easy to take with me and I can't help myself, I've brought one today that I wanted to share with you, and that is some color footage that I shot at this sort of neighborhood event that happens yearly in my neighborhood. It's called Porch Fest. It's a big deal in my neighborhood. Basically, the whole neighborhood becomes like a giant block party. Neighbors sign up to host their porches. Bands and musicians sign up to play on these porches, and they kind of pair people up. And then there's like the captains of each block that are meant to kind of keep the order, and people come in from other parts of the city, and it's just like, it's a big fun time. And so I thought it would be a good opportunity to take my camera out with me. And so this film is, I believe it's color negative, and I believe it was 40. I believe the ISO was 40, and it was a bright-ish day. It was a little overcast. You can see, you'll see sort of how that kind of speed film does in a, what I would say is kind of an overcast kind of day. So let's just take a look. So you can see at the beginning, as the film kind of starts up, because, so we've got some trees. I mean, I thought I was kind of impressed with the detail on these trees. I did start by shooting a little bit in my front yard just so that I could be sure that the camera was kind of running and I had some film going in there. You can see that there's a lot more like sort of light leak at the beginning of there. I do load it in very dim lights. So I load it in this office. There's no lights my office is a garage. There's no windows in here. And I turn off pretty much all the lights. I do leave the computer screen on so I can see a little bit. But you can load these daylight spools in low light or very dim light, like in the shade. And in a pinch, I've done that. I've loaded in a bathroom. I've loaded them. I think I loaded I've loaded it under like in the shade before. But you will just know that you'll lose just a little bit there at the beginning, simply because not just loading it, but remember we're flipping it over and loading it again on the other side. So you are losing just a bit of footage at the beginning of the roll. Pretty happy with the way this came out. I really like there's not a lot of grain to it, which is really nice. It's very like fine grain. Definitely want to see if I can pull up in some of these shots some of the midtones and the highlights. Maybe see if I can get a little bit more saturation on the color, but the saturation is pretty good. Let's see. And I was trusting out to see if I could see my husband. I want to say he's about 3 feet away from me in that sort of tighter shot. And it looks okay. But I would say maybe 4 feet is probably a good distance, where you can be sure that you're not going to be out of focus. I really had trouble finding, I need to just like stop moving the camera so much. So you can see, let me stop for a second. I really had trouble finding information about what the distance, like how close people can be to you or the subject can be to the camera with this particular lens. I really had trouble finding out that information. And so I was just kind of like, every now and then I'd be like, okay, get a little closer to me so that when I get this film back, I can see like, is this in focus or not? So you can see a lot of people there on the street. This is a real big event and everybody's just kind of walking around. And then, these kids, man, these kids were great. They were playing a lot of kind of classic rock, like they were doing Who and stuff, and they were really tearing it up. And there was a huge, huge group of people on the sidewalk watching these guys. So their band's just playing all over the neighborhood the whole time, and you just kind of walk around from place to place, enjoying bands on different porches. It's a pretty fun day. And so I was there was actually like a falafel tent set up in somebody's driveway. And so we were actually in line to get some falafel. And then you can kind of see in the middle of the roll here, how as we get to the end of the roll, this is where we would be flipping it over. So now once we get into this next band here, this is where I had flipped the roll over. I think I did that in a bathroom. It was October, so my neighbor had their Halloween decorations up. But happy with the color, happy with the exposure here. Some of the shots are a little underexposed, but nothing we couldn't do to bring it up. And there were a few that were a little more overexposed, but generally, pretty happy with the exposure that I got here. It was getting towards the end of the day, towards the end of this roll. So, some of the stuff in the shade, not as well exposed. So depending on the side of the street you were on. The other thing that I did, that was kind of unique to this experience, I love the way these flowers turned out. I'm really a sucker for foliage blowing in the breeze. I mean, aren't we all, when we're shooting film? We love sunsets. We love foliage blowing in the breeze. We love neighbors' unique little lawn decorations. So yeah, you can see really at the end here how, as we're getting to some of these later bands, like if you're on the side of the street where the sun is already kind of gone, those shots are a little underexposed. So the other thing that I did here is that I actually had the Zoom Bluetooth lavalier that I used in the last video. I actually had that clipped to my purse. So I had if you can go back and watch some, about, I think 2 videos ago, I talked more about that recorder, but basically it's a lavalier, but the recorder is self-contained. So there's no transmitter and receiver. You just got a mic and it goes directly into the recorder, and they're really lightweight. And you can see at the end here how we're kind of rolling out. But they're really small and lightweight, and they kind of manage their own levels, but not in a way where you're hearing like a noticeable dip in the audio. And there we go, we're out. You're not hearing a noticeable dip in the audio. They sound pretty good. I've got one on right now. This is what I use them for all of the videos. And as providing that the mic placement is good on my part, the sound comes out really pretty good. So I had this microphone sort of stashed in my purse, and I had the microphone, like the sort of the lapel mic, clipped to the front of my bag. And because these microphones sort of auto adjust the levels themselves, they did, as long as I sort of had it pointing away from me, it did do a pretty good job of picking up the sort of the ambient sound of what was going on around. And that's really what the experiment I was trying to engage with this was like, if I clip this mic to me, will I get like sort of a perspective from myself and the camera of the ambient sound that's going on around, not to synchronize it necessarily, but just to have that ambient sound to make it part of the video. One of the things about shooting motion picture film is that, you know, there's no sound, of course, and so you have to record the sound separately, and so you can put some music in there or, you know, add some sound in post. But I was like, well, let's see, you know, what I can do with this ambient sound to sort of like recreate the experience of being at this event. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, I hope that you will subscribe to the channel and come back and see what we can do with this footage. I'm gonna try to play around with the exposure a little bit with work with the color a little bit, and I am gonna try adding some of this ambient sound to the footage as well. If you would like some more of this, I also have a Substack blog where I share these videos as well as still images from photo walks that I've also done. And the link to that Substack is in the description of this video. I hope this gave you a little bit of insight into what working with AA film is like, and I hope I got you a little excited about it. You can get these cameras pretty cheaply. I don't remember, it was a while ago that I bought this, so I don't remember exactly how much I paid for it, but I want to say it was in the neighborhood of like $20 or, you know, $25. So it was very inexpensive to buy the camera, and as you can see, it gets pretty good results. They're really well built, well made cameras, and you know, they can be a lot of fun. So get out there, grab your AA camera, put that gal in your purse, and let's shoot more film, you guys.